Welcome to the Nurse Life Coach Academy podcast, where Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, talk all about how to get certified and practice professionally as a nurse life coach.
Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast, Nurse Life Coach edition. Today I'm going to talk about something that I actually have never done personally, but that was a big why behind creating Nurse Life Coach Academy, because I'm seeing a trend in nursing of organizations finally getting really excited having nurse coaches on staff. Now, I have several mentees who are doing this full time. I have had lots of conversations with other nurse coaches who are doing this in their organizations. And my sense is, I just had a mentee present this for an organization this week. We're waiting back for an answer, but this whole episode's about why your organization needs a nurse coach on staff. So I'm going to give you what I do know. Haven't done it personally, although low-key, I have secret plans to go down to my local East Tennessee hospital, find out who I need to talk to, offer to certify 5 to 8 of their staff in my certification program if they will let me follow what it does for their organization. So if anyone from East Tennessee, Blount County is listening to this, get a hold of me. I don't know who to talk to. I've never worked as a clinical nurse here in Tennessee. All right. Why do organizations need nurse coaches on staff? There's lots of reasons. And I'm going to go over some of the main ones and why I think that this is the time. It's ripe to happen. The next 3 years, mark my words. I'm pretty psychic. I can usually tell trends. In 36 months, magnet hospitals will have nurse coaches on staff. There's just no reason why they wouldn't. Will save them so much money, and it is a natural balm to soothe the pains that nursing in and of itself is facing today. So how are they working? Lots of different ways. There are nurses who were educators and they are now working in wellness departments at their hospital where staff can have a certain amount of sessions with them. And the staff is paid for that hour session and the nurse coach is paid to provide that session. So it becomes part of the way that they take care of their staff. It is being used in new grad residencies. I don't know about you guys, but I went right into the ICU as a new grad. And while I had my educator that helped me check off all my boxes and my orientation and all my skills, nobody was talking to me about my emotions, my nervous system regulation, my fear, my health. How was I sleeping? How was I managing this? And this holistic approach to taking a new grad onto a floor where they hold lives in their hands, oftentimes in their early 20s, this is an important step to have our nurses feel well equipped for the pressure and the stressors of going and working on a floor. There are nurse coach residencies popping up where organizations are actually paying for staff to go through, and then they're in a residency and they become their floor's go-to nurse coach. There are several nurses who no longer get paid to work on the floor in the clinical setting. They are only paid to be the nurse coach for their organization. There are floors and units starting to have nurse coaches on staff to support them holistically. This can be done after a difficult patient loss, after a medical mistake, after a difficult personal experience, after being off work for mental health or physical illness. This is such a low cost thing for an organization to bring on. It's almost laughable. And here's the thing. There are some organizations that have coaches. But nurse to nurse, you know that an executive coach or a life coach or a health coach who's never been on the floor, who's never done what you've done, there's only so much resonance that can happen. But a nurse who's done what you've done has gone through extensive training and hours and hours and hours of practice in the art and skill of coaching and holding space for another human. We are uniquely and divinely prepared to support other nurses in this way. And while a lot of nurse coaches do end up having a part-time private practice and they go to per diem or part-time in their organizations to have a more well-balanced life, many are starting to feel the call to really serve their organization, to serve their colleagues, to serve their floor, to serve the new grads, to serve a previous version of themselves that was not well supported or understood. I'm going to tell you a little story about the first time I experienced what I would call a coaching presence. Many of you know that my path to nurse coaching was preceded by a difficult medical diagnosis. After the birth of my son, the anesthesiologist had missed my spinal 5 times when I was laying on the table ready to have him. And every time he missed, I had a shooting pain down my left leg. And after my son was born, it wasn't immediate, but when the swelling went down, I started having extreme neuralgia in my left foot, like a bee sting, like a wasp sting at the top of my foot, but it was constant. And it was constant for about 3 years. I ended up walking with a limp. I had nerve damage in it. There was physical signs that something was wrong, but there was no physical cause that they could find. So of course I went to orthopedics and I went to neurology. And after 3 years of and lots of other different inflammatory things that were going on with me, my new primary doctor one day said to me, "Laura, you have functional pain. It's all in your head and you need to just be under the care of a psychiatrist." And I was already under the care of a psychiatrist because people kept telling me I was so anxious. Well, it's anxiety provoking when you have extreme pain, cascading symptoms, and every doctor that you see tells you that there's nothing wrong. That creates anxiety. So I had realized that moment that I was going to have to heal myself, that there was no doctor at Kaiser that was going to be able to help me. And in fact, at that point, they resented me and thought I was pain seeking, like seeking for drugs, or I'm not sure what was in my chart. Couldn't have been pretty. I went to a naturopathic doctor and the intake appointment was 90 minutes. And she did a history from the time I was born all the way up till that moment. And for 90 minutes, she asked me questions about me, holistic questions about my health history, when symptoms happened, what preceded that, how I felt about it. And for 90 minutes, she listened to me. And at the end of it, she said, "There is something going on and we're going to figure it out." And that was the beginning of my healing. That was the beginning of me having hope again. Now, cool part is, from a clinical standpoint, all my functional labs came back about 5 weeks later, and I had a severe food allergy to several different foods. My zinc and a couple of other key micronutrients were so low in my white blood cells that my biochemistry wasn't working. So I was just making a bunch of inflammation and unable to break it down. This was affecting my thyroid. It was affecting my hormones. And these are all tests that conventional doctors do not do. 16 weeks later, symptom-free, almost like 80-90% symptom-free, off of almost 14 medications, I believe, at that time. And I was disenchanted with medicine because no one would listen to me. Now, why would a nurse coach, how is this relevant to the story? Well, a nurse coach in the organization that you work in, listening to you about your experience, not only on the floor or working or how you're feeling, but how you're doing in your relationships. How are you sleeping? How is your health? How is your mental health? How's your anxiety? Are you dealing with depression? What are the primary relationships in your life? How is your work-life balance? How are you settling in here at this organization? Tell me about your strengths. Tell me about your weaknesses. What are your goals? To have an interested nurse coach, making eye contact, leaning in, leaning forward, and not having you rush, and not looking for a diagnosis or what's wrong with you, that in and of itself is healing. Healing in a way that forever changes you. And it doesn't take 1,000 sessions. That first session can be the beginning of a huge turnaround in somebody's life. Now, the preliminary data on this is staggering. Like a 40% reduction in employee turnover, like 6 months, 9 months into hospitals rolling out this program with just one nurse coach on staff. That's just one. Now, training a new nurse on a floor is like 50 to 100K. And so if an organization had 2 nurses not leave their first year because they felt seen and heard by a nurse coach, it's like double paid for itself. Now, who is qualified to go to an organization and say, I really think that you need nurse coaching. Here's what I propose. Here's how I'd like to do it. Here's the studies that we do have, and I'd like to do more studies with our organization. It takes a nurse coach that is trained, who's done several hours of sessions and is very confident in her ability or his ability to be a coach. And it takes confidence to talk to the CNO, to talk to leadership, to sell the idea in a way that the bottom line is affected, in a way that it's ridiculous for you not to be taken on as the resident nurse coach. Having worked with 4 or 5 nurses doing this, I love it. I love this because this is where nurse coaching in and of itself, A, becomes well known as a specialty. B, you're not only impacting your organization and each nurse on staff, but every single patient that they come in contact with. And those patients are my mom and my dad and my family. And I want them well taken care of. And if I end up in the hospital, I want my nurse to take good care of me. And I want her to be healthy. And I want her to not be depressed and drinking a bunch after work. I want her to not hate her job or feel unseen by her organization. I want her to not be working a bunch of overtime or coming in when she shouldn't be. I want my nurse to advocate for me. I want him to have confidence in the way that they communicate. This is what is required in our systems today. It's essentially a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of self-awareness, of confidence, of communication style, of health, of well-being, of humanity. In my current cohort, I have a couple of nurse leaders and I'm so excited, and they're doing this all on their own. Their organization's not paying for it. This is out of pocket for them, and they can't wait to bring this into their organization. And I think this is just the beginning. Since our program is not health coaching, we're not focused solely on health. We're focused on emotional intelligence. We're focused on leadership skills. We're focused on boundaries, on emotional intelligence. We're focused on all of the coaching tools that you could use with staff who are struggling in all the areas of their life. Okay, I'm getting super preachy. I tend to do this on podcasts. You guys say you don't mind. I can sense when I'm doing it. I'm going to take a big, deep breath and we'll come back to my notes here. All right. So I want to say what nurse coaching isn't for those of you listening that aren't already nurse coaches, because our base of listeners is growing exponentially, which is super exciting. Nurse coaching is not advice. Nurse coaching is not telling our clients how to do something better. Nurse coaching is not educating. Although in nurse coaching, we may, with permission, consult or offer some insights or have some tools that we share. But we are not the expert. The person in front of us is the expert of their own life. They are the material, and we dance with their material. And this is why coaching seems to help people so much. In the 400 to 500 students that I've been the instructor for and the teacher to, I hear this again and again from their pro bono clients. So mind you, this is their first 10 to 20 hours of being the coach, but just the beginning level aspects of being trained as a coach. We hear again and again, gosh, I got more out of 5 sessions with you as my nurse coach than I did out of 2 years of therapy. And this is not to harp on therapy. Therapy is fantastic. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. But there is a whole subset of human suffering and lost potential that is best served through the coaching container. And in that way, that kind of relation and relationship. Coaching seems to help people so much because people feel seen. They feel heard. We use techniques like motivational interviewing and appreciative inquiry. Clients leave sessions feeling better. They leave sessions feeling more confident. They leave sessions feeling like they had a shift in the way that they see themselves and the world. They find themselves taking actions that they hadn't taken before their coaching session. Nurses theoretically will stop working overtime that their body and mental health have no business working. This creates a healthier culture on the floor. This creates less calling out. There's so many organizations that are the amount of money that they spend on travelers to supplement their ever ongoing stressful experience of being shorthanded. Travelers cost more than staff nurses. If you can train and retain staff nurses, this is better for everybody. And I just don't know what could work better than nurse coaching for that. Like, I just can't think of a better tool. It's not going to be money. Studies show again and again and again that an employee will not stay at an organization where they do not feel seen, appreciated, and heard because of $2 more an hour. Every once in a while, I meet a nurse who says, I love my floor. I love my job. I love my staff. I love my manager. This is like a diamond in the rough. When I hear this, it lights me up because I'm like, heck yeah, this exists. The unicorn exists. It's the nurse who doesn't dread going to work. And only always, it's not because they're in the perfect circumstances. It's because they've done some level of self-development and some way of relating to the circumstances at work and making work in their life. Nurses who go from floor to floor, to unit, to specialty, trying to find the grass is greener. A lot of times it's like the grass needs to be greener inside of your thoughts of your confidence, of your well-being. And nurse coaching is a lot more than bumper sticker, holistic, complementary therapies. It's a deeper job than that. Yes, mindfulness is fantastic and self-care is what a beautiful, beautiful topic, but it's deeper than that. Deeper than a Zen den. It's deeper than a massage chair. It's more than a pizza party, right? This is each nurse's ethical responsibility to feel supported in a way that allows them to take care of other human beings when they are the most vulnerable, accurately, skillfully, happily, and not from a freaking empty cup. I got preachy again. Gonna calm it back down again. Y'all have probably changed channel by now. It's cool. Come back to it. I'm gonna get my shit together. I promise. All right. I'm going to talk to what nurse coaches and organizations are able to do and what it leads to. It leads to increased overall satisfaction of not just the nurses, but of all staff, because nurses are the lifeblood of organizations, of healthcare organizations. There is a 40% decrease in turnover, at least from multiple small scale individual studies that I've been privy to. It saves money in training. It makes nurses feel more confident, which makes them safer. It makes them feel more confident in speaking to staff, in speaking to leadership, in speaking to doctors. It makes nurses feel healthier. It helps nurses create boundaries. It makes nurses feel like they're a part of something bigger and better so that their purpose is fulfilled, so they do not feel like a cog in a broken wheel of a system that isn't getting better, but seems to be slowly getting worse. I think nurse coaching can be the pivot for an organization to stop slowly spiraling downward and start spiraling upward. In other large corporate environments, there are coaches on staff for a reason, and healthcare just seems to not have gotten the memo on this. So for those of you listening to this and this feels like a path that you want to take and you feel overwhelmed, I like to say to students and to clients, like, how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. The first bite is to get certified and to become excellent at your craft, to become excellent at nurse coaching. Once you've become excellent and you're confident in that skill, and only then we can talk about ways for you to propose and get in front of the right decision makers to bring this into your hospital. Whether you're doing it as a staff nurse and you're creating a position, or if you're consulting and you're an independent contractor getting hired by an organization, there's room for all of this to happen. And we need visionaries. We need people to go first. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably somebody tasked with that. I also think that a little bit of private practice is really, really great to season you for this, because in private practice, you have to learn sales. And believe it or not, if you're going to bring nurse coaching to your organization, you are selling an idea to your organization. Sales skills will translate here in a really beautiful way. You're also selling your staff on the excitement and the importance and the value and the relevancy of having a session with you. And so I think that some sales training and some sales skills goes a long way, even if you're planning to coach in your organization. All right, 22 minutes of Laura preaching, but I would love to hear from you. If this is resonating with you, if you are already one of our grads or somebody that we've worked with, and this is something that you want to do, reach out to me. I've got a few resources now that I can give you. I would get on a call with you if I needed to. I could have myself or somebody that I trust overlook your proposals. This is an all hands on deck mission. And if you have nurses in your organization who want to kind of do what you've been doing, if you're already a coach, tell them about Nurse Life Coach Academy. We'd love to have you in our family and learn the skills that I think are going to save nursing. All right. Hope you're feeling on fire and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.